Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Throw Zone. I'm your host, Big Kev. Today we have Maggie Ewen on the pod, and Maggie is the 2021 Diamond League champion in the shot put. She is placed at 5 different outdoor world championships, and she's a 4-time NCAA champion, with 2 of those being in the shot put, 1 in the hammer, and 1 in the discus. So thank you so much for coming on, Maggie. We're really happy to have you on the podcast tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. We're real excited to get to dive in and hear about your journey through throwing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a fun one.
yeah. So, well, real quick, I'd just like to say thank you to Lincoln Microphone for setting us up with microphones here in Lincoln. If you're in need of custom microphone work or repair, go check them out. And then I think give a thank you to Schubert Cattle and Farms LLC. If you're in need of any type of beef or half a cow, anything in that ballpark, send us a DM and we'll get you connected with a good deal on some beef. So get this ball rolling here. So Maggie, what inspires you to give throwing a try?
I wanted to be just like my big sister. So my family was super into like the camping, the hiking, all that outdoorsy stuff. My parents had a very rich athletic history that they never told us about. Like my dad was, I think, 7th at the Olympic trials for hammer, and my mom was the first alternate for the volleyball Olympic team.
Wow.
And yeah, never told us about any of it, which I think is a good thing, honestly. But one day we came home with a volleyball flyer, and my mom was like, I can coach that. And then a couple years later, we came home with a track and field flyer, and my dad was like, well, I know some things about that. And so my sister started throwing because she was a couple years older than me. And so I would go out there with them, even though I was only in it must have been like 3rd or 4th grade. I was young, and I was just playing with discuses, learning how to make them roll, come off your hand nice, all that kind of stuff. And my sister eventually drifted away from it, and I just never did.
Yeah, just stuck with it. And when you were first learning to throw, did you get to do any of the youth competitions or anything like that?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, it probably wasn't until maybe my sophomore year of high school that my dad started telling me about there's the USATF youth category, or there's the New Balance Nationals and stuff like that. And so we got into that more so in kind of my ending years of the high school circuit. But other than that, it was just throw for fun. And then once the season went over, time to go fishing and camping and hiking again.
Yeah. Did you play any other sports besides track and field and volleyball?
Yeah, a lot of volleyball. That was my main sport all growing up, all through high school. I almost went to college for volleyball. But then I also played softball when I was younger, until in Minnesota they go at the same season. They're both spring sports. And so I played recreational softball, but through for the school. At one point it was basically you need to pick one. And it was a really hard choice. I almost picked softball. So in multiple ways, I almost wasn't a thrower by 9th grade.
Wow. And so did you start competing in 7th grade then?
Well, yes, it's a little complicated. So in middle school, basically my dad and some of the people who dealt with kind of the recreational sports around my city, they saw kind of the want and the need for a junior high track team. So I started that when I was in 6th grade. And then I was going to go into another year of it when I got into 7th grade, because it was meant for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And then 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, you would be in the high school. I guess I was good enough by my 7th grade year that I was on varsity from 7th to my senior year. So I did one year of middle school, and then 6, I guess, of high school.
Wow. No, that'd
Yeah,
be really
it's
cool,
fun.
especially getting all that experience competing with older kids right away. So
Yeah.
when you would be a freshman, that's really going into your 3rd year of competing with those kids already.
Yeah, no, I think it's looking back on it, it was definitely something that helped me get better faster, because like you said, it's a younger sister and an older sister, or just being amongst higher level competition, you see what it takes to get better, and you also see where the bar is at and how far you have to go usually. And so it helps you kind of climb the ranks, I think, a little faster because what you're looking for.
Yeah. And so when you got to high school, did your dad ever let you try out the hammer, or when did that come into play?
No, I never touched the hammer. After I was recruited to Arizona State, he taught me the footwork, but he was like, I'm not ruining you. Basically, he was like, I want this new coach to have a totally blank slate. So I'll teach you like the heel, toe, step. I'll teach you like the very, very basics that nobody's going to teach any differently. But I'd never thrown a hammer, never anything before college.
That's really interesting. And then when you're throwing in high school, were you gliding or spinning in the shot?
I've only ever spun. I've never done the glide. Never
Whoa.
even like just messed around and tried it. I've only ever spun.
Well, that's really unique because a lot of times when kids first start throwing, they're just handed the shot put and they're like, all right, here's somewhat a stand throw. Now do a crow hop and there's a shuffle. And then
Yeah.
kids just kind of have to figure out the glide. But it worked out for you that you had your dad who had a good understanding of throwing already, that you already had that type of
Yeah.
coaching.
Yeah, I remember. So I started throwing shot put in 8th grade, and it was very much a begrudging experience because I did not want to throw shot, did not like shot, hated it. I would throw discus for like 50 minutes, and then I'd be like, here's your 10 minutes of shot put practice, whatever.
Yep.
So for my like first, I think 2, maybe even 3 years of throwing shot put, I was competing only with like a stand throw. And then I was only competing with a wheel for like a year. And I only actually learned how to spin my senior year. And so that's the only year I actually did the full thing, I guess. And I
So
didn't reverse. So
So going into high school, I know you were a four-time champion in the discus and a three-time in the shot.
something like that. Yeah. I think it might be 5 in the discus. No, it was yeah, I think you're right. I don't
Some
know.
in that ballpark at least.
I don't know.
No, hopefully my research was right there. But when you were throwing, what distances were you hitting when you first started in high school?
Playing around when I was in 6th grade, I was playing around at one of my sister's meets afterwards with the discus, and I think I threw, I want to say 90 feet with it. As a 6th grader, and the throws coach was right there. And so I believe by 7th grade, I want to say I was throwing like 135. And then by the time, and that was, I believe that was only a stand throw as well. And then by
Wow.
the time I was senior, I'd only gotten up to like 172, which is good. But when you see how long it took for me to get there, it's kind of like, okay.
Yeah, no, it's understandable, but the 135, that's insane for middle school. I'm actually, this last year, I've been coaching middle school shot put and discus for sixth or eighth graders at a small school in Lincoln. And I don't know how kids would have reacted if they would have saw us, a seventh grader drop a 135. And a lot of these meets, if you throw over 80, that's like really good. I actually just had one girl qualify to the middle school state meet or in the low 80s or so. So that I fully understand how significant that would be. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, it's a combination of, like I was saying, by 7th grade, I'd already been throwing for 4 years, and combined with the fact that like I've pretty much been this size since like 6th grade. So I had some things working in my favor, I think.
Yeah. And how much do you think being like involved in all the different sports has that helped you with your experience in softball and
Yeah,
volleyball?
I think it's so, so important, honestly. I think high school in general is a time to be doing a little bit of everything, really diversify your activities, basically, try other sports, do other things, because I think that college is the time when you actually like really want to specialize. At least that's how it was when I was going through the whole high school collegiate system with some of the new rules and stuff that they have in college now. I don't know if that would 100% be the case anymore, but I think coaches prefer to see those athletes who they're just a well-rounded athlete that I can mold the way I want them. Like they don't have those super ingrained technical cues. Like you can see that there's a lot of ceiling left
Yeah.
in their technique, in their throw, in their potential, where you get some of these kids that come out already having worked with really high level coaches or really high level strength training programs where it's kind of like, okay,
They already have
we'll
an
see.
idea of what's right
Yeah.
and wrong. And if
Yeah, and like
what
we'll
you're
see
teaching
what
them is
more we
different.
can get out of you. Whereas you get these athletes who it's just like, I've just been kind of playing around all high school, but like I'm kind of naturally good at this. I personally think that's more of what coaches want to see, and then they can mold you exactly how they want you.
Yeah, that's I had a similar experience. So I glided all throughout high school, and I'm from Omaha, so Lincoln's only like 50-ish minutes away.
Hmm.
And I did a whole bunch of track camps at Nebraska, and that's sort of why I ended up coming here. Is I ended up enjoying it. Was one of those I never thought I would end up in Nebraska. I had no interest, was never a Husker fan. I was the one person in the whole world who
That's
lives in
shocking.
Nebraska. Yeah, I know. My first Nebraska gear was actually what I bought for the night before my signing ceremony at my high school, so I had something to wear. Anyways, I worked a lot with Coach Capos because he was a coach at Nebraska,
Yeah.
and I was a glider. We had a little bit of spin, but we came up with the game plan my senior year once I was going to go to Nebraska of, all right, we're not going to touch the spin. We're not going to worry about the spin. We're not going to look at the spin. Stay far away from the spin. So then that way, when I started summer school, I would be able to start working with him directly, and I would
Yeah.
be able to learn it his way, and I wouldn't have any bad habits or anything that I picked up
Yeah.
from not having a high level coach.
Exactly. Nothing that you have to come in and he has to like untrain things out of you. You have no habits because you've never done it. Just like my dad with me and the hammer, he's like, no, nope, I'm gonna send you away.
Yeah,
Totally
and
oblivious.
the having to switch coaches, I feel like might be difficult too. Where if you spend so much time knowing a certain cue one way,
Oh
or
yeah.
just approaching the throw a certain way, and then having a change of mindset, sometimes, especially if you're younger and don't have as much experience, you see
Yeah.
that as no, that's wrong. That's not how that works. It works this way, and just having to understand that change and adaptation.
I was gonna say the coaching change, I think it's more mental than anything because I had the coaching change halfway through my collegiate experience. And yeah, it was tricky, but it's all in, how you frame it, I think, in your mind. Like you were saying, like you don't want to go to this new coach and be like, well, that's not how my last one did it. And that's hard. It's hard to untrain.
Yeah, I know. I struggled with that too because Coach Sam Clare came in my junior year, and there were a lot of things that I, the way I saw my throw, and I only spun for 2 years, so everything I learned was still pretty new, to
Yeah.
where I felt like I had a good grasp on some things, and a lot of other things were brand new concepts, and it took me a long time to be able to understand, and then finally not believe in the cues, but just understand what they mean. Because you can hear something in 1,000 ways, and only one of those ways might click, even
Oh,
though that's
for
the
sure.
same thing.
100%.
Yeah, but back to your journey here. So, when did you know that you wanted to throw in college?
I suppose so. Like I said, I almost went to college for volleyball, and some of my recruiting visits were like, you can do both. You can come here and you can play volleyball and you can do track and field. And my dad, was kind of like, well, is that something that actually interests you? And, I was kind of like, well, yes, of course. And he was like, well, no, like, think about it. He's like, do you want to be okay at two things or do you want to be excellent at one thing? And I was kind of like, oh, you're right. So I had to pick one. And I pretty much just decided because my sister was doing college volleyball at the time, I was kind of like, well, I see the type of training she's doing, and I'd rather not be running that much. And I prefer the idea of my success or failure is 100% on my shoulders. Like, I'm not much of a team player. I am, but I'd
No,
much rather
I
just be responsible for my own fate.
exactly. It's the same
Yeah.
situation they talk about like Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan in basketball. When
Yeah.
games on the line, they want to be the one that decides if they win or lose.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Give me the
I've
ball.
yeah, that I feel like that's a very common thing for throwers and people in of individual sports like that, even like the strength world, where
Yeah.
it's nice to know when you go out to do something that it's all about did you prepare for this? Are you
Yes.
completely ready to go? Compared to
100%.
team sports, you could have a great day, but then your team loses, and then it's like that feeling of I did great, but we lost. I had some great blocks in volleyball today, but we lost in
Mhm.
3 sets.
I know, but my libero couldn't get those kills, you know? And it's just like, oof.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the
Yeah.
worst things is not being able to, and then you're not sure how to feel about it too.
I know, it's tricky. Yeah, so I guess it was kind of almost during my recruiting process that I like decided, okay, I'm gonna be a thrower. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah, the running part that was funny too.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
that's the number one recruiter I can do for middle school throws right now. Is this is their last week of school, last meet of the year, and this last week or two have I've seen a whole bunch of distance kids and sprinters magically appear. Oh yeah, Coach Kevin, I'm throwing with you guys. Did you hear? Did you not get the email?
I love
And
it.
yeah, so you never know. Maybe someone will end up becoming a thrower out of that. Half the time I sort of send them back.
Maybe. You never know. Never know until you
Exactly.
try. That's the thing with throwing. You never know until you try it.
Exactly. I had one sixth grader today that ran over and told her mom that she threw because she wanted to throw with one of her friends, and she's a dancer. And I explained discus, is like a dance.
Yeah.
And she picked up the full spin, like the rough outline of what she's doing within a day. And she ran over,
Nice.
Mom, this is awesome. Like throwing is so fun. You should record this. I'll throw again. And so it's fun
She
to
was like,
see
it's just
people
like a
gain that.
routine. 1, 2, 3. Like, I
Exactly.
love it.
Yeah. And so during your time in middle school and high school, did you do much in terms of strength training, or is that something you developed later on in college?
Yeah, yeah, I did a lot, more so for something to just do in the summer. We had like a summer weight training program through our high school. So I would go do that. And then my dad, it's what he went to college for. And so when I started just kind of seeming more like into it, wanting to get more involved, all that kind of stuff, like he started writing like programs for me, super like basic ones, because like he didn't like want super young kids lifting heavy but like I'd say my numbers and stuff were like pretty good coming out of high school, and like I had the clean technique down and just stuff like that, that it's like I was very, very comfortable in a weight room, but I don't think that like I like a
You haven't
big
hit the ceiling
room.
yet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's always great. You can get a lot of benefits from just the simple, like smart training program, even if
100%.
it's, not some crazy complex like supersets, bands, chains, boxes,
Yeah.
just like the basics of, strengthening your legs, strengthening your core, getting a
Yeah,
good triple extension. I think that stuff is
exactly.
super important.
Yeah, it's just another component of being that, well-rounded athlete.
Exactly. I think for throwers especially, we're just trying to get the maximum athleticism to be the best athlete possible, and then the technique development, lets you drive all that ability and direction.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I agree.
yeah. So going into the start of your collegiate career, was it
Hmm.
an easy transition for you to go to a place very different from where you grew up and having to, I guess, learn a whole new event and brand new training philosophies?
I mean, realistically, I don't want to say yes, like it was just, oh, it's super easy, but like I don't remember it being overly challenging. You know what I mean? Like, because my dad, again, he kind of sat me down before he left, and this was something that again helps me like further down the road when I switched coaches. But he basically told me, he's like, okay, like here's the deal. Everything I've ever told you is trash. Ignore it. Forget it. If Dumble tells you something different, that's the right thing. That's the
Yeah,
correct whatever. There's no but dad said. And he was also very respectful in that, like, the second he sent me to Dumble, where he was very involved in obviously all of my high school stuff, he was like, you are 100% out of my hands.
that's
Like, I'm
problem
not
now.
gonna meddle. I'm not gonna like, oh, what's he saying? Oh, what are you doing? It was very much just he threw me to the wind. But yeah, I mean, I had a good group, I think, when I got into Arizona State of um like upperclassmen and whatnot that I think kind of really helped me because I was also the only freshman. I was the only new kid that came in.
Wow.
And so I think in a way it kind of just forced them to all of their attention was on me.
Yeah,
And
that
so
works.
yeah, and so I think they did a really good job of helping me through all of it, where I really don't remember the transition other than getting used to the heat. That was the one thing. I thought Dumble was literally trying to kill me when we were out running hills in like 110-degree weather.
That would be the end of me.
Yeah, but other than that, it all felt very smooth, I'd say.
Yeah, I think you think part of that could be that you were just a blank canvas and you came in eager to learn and you didn't really, I
Yeah.
guess, have not expectations. You had expectations, but you didn't have predetermined philosophies of how things are going to go.
No, 100%. And I think what also helped me is Dumble's policy was pretty much always to redshirt people the first year they came in. So I also kind of had no pressure that first year. Like it was just a learning year, break down the old, get comfortable with the new, and then we can go into next year having a good, clear idea of what we want.
Well, it sounds like the way to do it.
I know, it was nice, I gotta say.
Yeah. And so throughout your collegiate career, what do you think was the biggest boost to your performance in terms of training? Whether that was something you picked up in terms of nutrition, recovery, or even just different training measures?
Oh gosh. I mean, it's gonna sound weird, but like, I don't think that I necessarily ever had like a huge jump, you know? Like like I said, I was already pretty physically fit, strong in the weight
Yep.
room, all that kind of stuff. And I already had like a decently good grasp of my throw, and I was very willing and flexible to like work with Dumble. And so I think that it like wasn't necessarily like a specific thing as much as it was maybe just like my life kind of now revolves around this thing. Because in college it very much is like your job to be an
Yeah.
athlete, you know? And so it's wake up, practice, breakfast, training table, or not training table, but training room, ice baths, go meet with the med people, go now to the weight room, back to practice. And so it's just like everything revolves around throwing. And I think that almost it was less like a technical thing that changed or what, but I think it
Just
was
the
more so
environment
my
that
focus just zeroed in.
exactly. You're putting all the pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think having being a balance of everything is really important when you're going into training. You can't just focus in one direct area. At least in my experience, as soon as I started Coach Sinclair came in, he explained about how with his training philosophies is if you skip a session in the training room or you don't get the recovery or even just like they'll take your vitamins and all that nutrition
Yeah.
stuff that you're gonna get knocked off the cliff and you're gonna feel it. And a lot of us were like, yeah, whatever, sure, we don't need the training room, we've never been in the training room. And then all of us that didn't have it before were kind of just hanging out in September, like, oh hey, what are you doing here? Do you know where this is? I have no idea, I've never been here before.
Yeah.
And just that whole training, changing philosophies and understanding how important each little piece is to create, like you said, like that whole everything has to be focused on throwing.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything, all the little pieces and parts just build up.
Yeah. And so I guess a question on the flip side of things, do you have any hobbies outside of throwing that you really enjoy that help you kind of zone out from training?
Yeah. I read a lot or listen to audiobooks, which obviously helps to zone out. And then I crochet a lot, almost obsessively.
Oh, that's awesome.
And those are kind of my two main things. And then I'm a person that kind of picks up and drops hobbies pretty frequently. So I'm good at distracting myself when I need to, basically.
No, that's always an important skill.
Yeah.
So then how long have you been crocheting for?
My aunt taught me when I was maybe 11, and just ever since then.
Do you think having like a hobby like crocheting has been beneficial in terms of being able to find something outside of throwing to focus on in certain occasions?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, especially now when you go to China for 2 weeks. Between meals and training, you're just sitting in a hotel room. And so
Yeah.
it's something that can occupy you. Like you said, it's something that gets your mind off of it. It's something that's totally, totally different. It's not even a sport. It's not even really like an activity.
Really
It's just
competitive either.
it's not competitive. It's totally just a labor of love. And so I think, yeah, I think it's important to just have those things that you do just because you enjoy doing them, whatever those things may be.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's really important. But at the end of your career in college, did you specifically set out that you wanted to eventually zone in and go all in on the shot put? I know you competed professionally in hammer and discus, but did you ever think that shot put, the event that you despised early on in your career, was going to be the way you're going to focus?
Still my least favorite event, if I can be
So,
completely honest. But at the time, coming out of college, what I was throwing then, which is practically what I'm throwing now, like the 1920s, 90s, like that was super competitive on the world scene. And like hammer, I was throwing well, but financially, it's a little harder to make a living in the hammer. And discus, I basically just had to look at my own countrymen in Valerie and Lalauga. And at the time, Whitney Ashley, Geneva, all of these girls. And I was like, I am already like sixth or seventh on the list just in my own country. So no. And shot put, with it being an indoor event and an outdoor event, it was one of those things that I know it's not like the exciting answer, like the passionate answer
yeah,
I'm
like,
sure
yes,
you
I
wish to
changed.
hear.
Yeah, I had the change of heart this one day of practice, and now I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's almost more logistically, shot put made the most sense.
Yeah, and from what you've explained about the feelings of being in control and the high competition level, you probably enjoy shot put then from that competition aspect of the feeling of succeeding, and that's what brings you enough joy to at least stick with it.
Yes, exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, it's not like I hate it. It's not like I despise it. Like, I do enjoy it, but if I had to pick one out of the three to not throw anymore, if I was good enough to throw the other
The
two the way I do the shot put would be the one I would get rid of.
poor shot put.
I
Well, as
know.
much as I would have to say I'm in the exact opposite mindset, that's the only
I
event that
know.
I
So many
enjoyed.
people are.
Yeah, but I will admit, watching a really good hammer throw or a really good throw in the discus is hard to
So
beat.
satisfying.
Yeah, the shot put, you have a good throw, you just have like a second where you can enjoy it. Even if you're watching someone else, a second and a half maybe of watching it
Yeah.
fly compared to discus, if it's a nice wind
Oh,
and
I
it just
know.
floats just right, it's honestly just really fun to watch.
There's right. There's the showmanship. There's the drama. There's there's just so much
Exactly.
more.
Yeah, and it's a lot more impressive with shot put since you can throw inside just for thinking scale reasons. You can contain it in
Hmm.
a building, and
But yeah,
if you
there's
think
so
about
much
the
more fun things you can do with a shot put, honestly. You can have the street meets, you can have the indoor stuff,
oh
there's a lot more fun
exactly,
things, but
yeah,
I love a
the
discus.
that is true. With exactly fun things for shot put, one of the first big events for shot put that I got to witness that was in my early development had to
Hmm.
be my sophomore year. I made it to KU relays. I really loved shot put at that point, but I still played football. I still played basketball, and I couldn't name a single Olympian or anything at that point.
Yeah.
And it was this would have been 2017, right after Krauser won in 2016, and he was throwing at the KU Relay Street Shot Put celebration, and they closed down downtown Lawrence, and they built up a big dirt mound. And
Yeah.
they put a ring in there, and we got to KU. I was
So
tired. I
cool.
was happy to get to my hotel, and my coach calls, and it's like, Kevin, you and your dad need to get over here. The guy who won the Olympics is throwing shot put. And I'm like, won the Olympics? That sounds like he did pretty good. We'll come watch. Like I didn't even know what a pro shot
I
putter
was the
looked
same
like.
way in high school. I was
Yeah, it
the
was one of
exact
those.
same
I
way.
enjoyed it, but I could name the people in the state that were doing good in Nebraska, but I couldn't name anyone outside of that. And I
Hmm.
remember going over, and it was a very different atmosphere that was unexpected. Imagine throwing, except it's in like a beer garden, and it was just a smell of like beer and cigarettes everywhere, and then they had music blasting, and I was looking around and you see like everyone was freaking out, and then I saw this one guy from the US that just threw way farther than everyone. And I was like, wow, like it was like a whole event and it was just so different, and just
Yeah.
so in the atmosphere. And they had I don't know, I always thought he was from like somewhere like in Asia or somewhere that was competing at this meet. Looking back, you could someone tells you something random in high school as a thrower,
Yeah.
you understand. And he had this big mug of beer, and he takes his throw, and he just walks back to the tent, reaches over outside the area, grabs a big mug, and
I love it.
yeah, so it was just like this, like, huh, like this is kind of just different. It's kind of funny in a way.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with shot put though. The street meets, there is no beating a street meet. Like
Exactly, the environment,
they're just
especially
magical. I love them.
there's so much flexibility for shot put, just
I
since it doesn't
know.
take up that much space, relatively speaking, and having like even they gave Krauser like a huge check, and you got to go in line and take a photo. So I had this
Yeah.
awkward bro hug with Krauser way back then,
I love
and
it.
after that, that was when it kind of inspired me. Like, oh, this is what a pro shot putter looks like. Yeah, makes
Yeah.
enough sense. And that's kind of right around the time when I really got invested, and decided I wanted to throw. And you don't really have that experience in the other events.
Yeah, no, there's nothing like that. Especially like in the States. I know there are some cool things like in Norway and stuff where they'll like throw hammers over rivers. So you have to have like a minimum PR, like
That's
at
what we need
least
in the sport.
over. I know, you need more like
Some
some,
pizzazz.
yeah,
Yeah.
some pizzazz.
Yeah, that's what I like about what they're doing at the World Shot Put Series
Oh,
right now.
lo-
Yeah, I was fortunate enough that the throw zone was able to go out with media credentials, and we were able
cool.
to go out there and get a bunch of fun content, see everything. And it was really cool to see this field house just filled with fans of throwing. And even they had some junior college
Mhm.
performers at the beginning, and they were getting slow claps for all their throws. And it
Love
was
it.
really cool because when you think of a slow clap, you think, okay, this is like, the big dogs are getting the slow claps, but it was every single competitor who wanted it got a slow clap. And
Yeah,
everyone would scream and yell and whistle on every throw like you just dropped an 80 bomb. Like it
I
was,
love it.
yeah, I think
You
that's going to be
know,
great for the sport.
I had a phone call with Ryan recently, and I told him I was like, personally, hate sports. Don't want to watch them. Don't care. Even my own sport. Sorry, but like, I don't watch it. All that kind of stuff. But I was like that. I sat down and watched the whole thing, start to finish. Didn't look away, didn't want to look away. Like, that was just so much fun. So cool. Just everything about it was just chef's kiss. It was just perfect.
Yeah, and I think that's something that all the events could find ways to be unique. I'm not sure what that would look like for some of the other events of how to change it up or just to add something fresh, change
Yeah,
it
just something
for the heck
different.
of it. I think
Yeah.
that would really help grow the sport. That's something that hopefully people see all these changes and think of fun ways to get attention and just keep growing the sport
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. I mean, it's been the same for who knows how many,
forever.
probably
Yeah.
hundreds of years. It's like it's about time we tried to modify it just a little bit, just for funsies. You
Yeah,
can still do it the old-fashioned way for like big competitions and stuff, but have an exhibition here or there. Like make it fun.
exactly. Yeah, because I always thought growing up, like, oh, it's so unfair. The cross country kids have all their outdoors stuff in the early fall and they get to do all the
Yeah,
competitions. Not that competing year round is a deal or anything, but then at that point, like, why can't we have like something
something.
different? Whether
Yeah.
that's like the thrower multi of, we take okay, maybe exclude javelin for this one, but take the heavy throws and have some kind of competition where you add your PRs. Like that's like
Yeah.
your long distance as you're throwing different events. That's
Yeah. Again, something they have in Europe, but not here.
And that's another thing they have in Europe that we don't is fire outside of the sector after a throw. I can't remember where that is, but whenever
Oh, it's in a couple places.
yeah,
Let me tell you, it's in a couple places.
yeah. Have you had the opportunity to compete in one of those?
Yes, but it was last year, so I was not throwing well, so I never got the fire.
No, I
But it
thought
did
that
go
was
off a
so
couple
cool.
times.
Yeah,
It's fun. It's again just fun,
and it's
exciting.
the little changes bring in the environment. So that's something that I think has been really cool to see the sport grow in that way of people are bringing that in. I think if I had to make one thing to the throws that I think would make it really cool is if we had walk up songs or something like that, like baseball and all the other sports. Like who knows what would play when Nick Ponzio steps up to throw? Like you can't tell me that he couldn't cook
I
up something elaborate that would just draw a whole crowd from just
I was
that.
gonna say, I have been at meets where we do this, and it is amazing. It is magical. You get one song, one or two, and then like that's the song that just plays whenever you're called up during your throw while they mark your throw. And
Oh
it's just so
man.
much fun. It is so cool. I don't get why more meets don't do just like that simple thing.
Oh
This is
yeah,
so much fun.
yeah. That's the thing with throwing. It doesn't take too much to excite us. We're just happy to be included at this point.
I was gonna say
Where
we're relatively simple to please, but
exactly, like if that means putting the discus ring closer to the school compared to all the side quests, especially for hammer throwers, I feel like they have it the worst.
right.
Where you go to a meet and you shots on the infield, discs on the infield. Oh, hammers at this remote location. You need to take the
Yeah.
bus and
Yeah,
figure it
yeah,
out on your
yeah.
own.
Yeah, I hope you were a cross country runner because that's what it's gonna feel like to get to the hammer cage. So have fun.
Yeah, we've had some of those experiences. Even we had a indoor meet in Iowa, and they had weight throw at their rec center and their like field house. So we had to hitchhike a ride on the bus and leave the team. So even at the bigger competitions, poor throwers, all the thrower memes are relevant no matter what level you're at.
Yeah, the rest of track and field is very lucky we are patient people because we get pushed aside a lot.
Yeah, yeah, we're not really divas, but boy, are we expensive in terms of the
That's true.
not the fueling and then just equipment costs and stuff like
The
that.
equipment. Yeah, that's the big one.
Yeah, and that's something that's only going to increase in price when it comes to all the innovations like the money ball for weight throw. That's been definitely
I
a
can only
huge
imagine.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so glad I don't have to buy those anymore.
Yeah, I never had to throw the weight, so I'm never worried about that. But I guess something that we've had a couple Q&As in our story of questions
Mhm.
people wanted to know about upcoming throwers, and it would be about overall nutrition advice. That's been a big question we've had advice on. If you have any sorts of like rules you follow where it's, oh, I need to take this supplement or things in that ballpark.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was just kind of like brought up in a pretty good family where I eat pretty well naturally, but I think the biggest thing is for me what I would recommend. I took it all through college and it's like the only supplement that I take is creatine, and it's like the only thing that I like swear by. But I mean, other than that, I think the biggest thing for throwers is just protein is the most important thing. Is just making sure you're getting all your protein in because it's not just to like make your muscles bigger, but it's like protein helps with like recovery. Protein helps with all of these other things that's like people don't seem to want to
Yeah, they
tell you
forget about.
about.
Yeah,
But it is so, so, so important. And so I think if nothing else, just always make sure you're getting your protein in, whether it's supplementing it or just doing it naturally. I think those are the two biggest.
I would agree. At least for me, I was always in that same area of protein and creatine, and that was something that I had a hard time remembering. So I had to set my reminders up, put it somewhere I could see on a daily basis, and just stay consistent with that.
I just put it in my coffee in the morning and then I can't forget.
That's a good way to go about that. Yeah. And so that brings us to another really popular question we have, which is about recovery methods. If you have a certain, I guess, routine or method you typically use that you think was really beneficial to recover from a hard day of training.
So in college, when I was three events, trainings, all that kind of stuff, I was really, really heavy into yoga at the time. It was my like fix. And I think that did like kind of unintentionally did just a lot of good for my recovery because it's the stretching, it's the foam rolling, it's all the things looped into like a little activity. Because I was never huge on ice baths or I do like a Normatec. I do like a Normatec. But I think the biggest thing, honestly, is the simple things for recovery. Do your foam rolling, do your stretching, go to bed early.
I
Make
think that's a
getting
hard one
enough
for a lot of
sleep.
people.
I know, especially college kids. Sleep is so important. And for college kids, don't party too much.
Yeah,
You can give
exactly.
yourself moments, but if you want to excel, well, then you need to be a little more strict.
Yeah, it's like the like common saying in either business or even in sports of live like others can't, so then someday you can live like others wish. And that
Exactly.
same philosophy.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's something that a lot of people get some takeaways from was just sleeps. And it's free. You don't have to pay for any equipment. You just gotta
It's
close your
easy.
eyes.
It's lovely. I know. I know. It's the most important thing. I swear to you. It's just
Yeah.
hard to do when you're a college kid.
Yeah, with
Convince yourself to
exams
go to
and
bed at 9 o'clock.
yeah, especially if you have an early morning class. That
All the
I
more reason to go to bed early.
Yeah, I made the mistake my freshman year. I had an 8 a.m. calculus class that meant 5 days a week, and so I was learning that the old fashioned way of the everyone said, "Oh, you're a freshman, you don't take early classes," and the "Oh yeah, well high school started at 8 o'clock, that's fine," and then life hits. You're like, "Oh, this is a mistake."
Life hits. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, as long as you're trying, honestly. Even
Yeah,
just the effort goes a long way.
effort does go a long way.
Yeah.
But we have one last question here for you. So this one, kind of a complex question, is has to be when you look back on your training when you were younger, so whether that was middle school or high school when you first started throwing, if you could change one thing you did in terms of training or technique, what would that be?
I would have glided. That's the big thing. I think the glide is a really, really important thing for people to start on because a thing that continues to nag me in my career has always nagged me throughout my careers is I have so much trouble getting a good strike on the ball and like just understanding that feeling of really being behind the ball, using the whole kind of right side to really get the ball out there. It's always just gone over my head. And I think it's because I've rotated all my life. And so everything I learned from a very young age was very just rotational. And it took a long time, probably until about I started working with Blue Tricks, or probably like my junior year of college, that like I finally started to understand like the linear aspect of throwing and how we're going around, we're doing all these spinning rotational movements, but we're looking for linear moments in that rotational movement. And I think that because I never did the glide, I never had that base of the throw is linear, I am still somewhat suffering from it to this day. So,
And for people watching, it's kind of crazy to think of they see Maggie is one of the best in the world at what she does, and she's talking about something that a lot of people have that inaccurate thinking of glide is like throwing or like the easy difficulty or that's like a beginner thing, and they kind of oversee all the positives and all the structural components that are important for like, that even some of the best in
yeah,
the world talk about.
yeah, there's a fundamental I think just feeling philosophy idea that you get when you begin as a glider versus you've just spun your whole life.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you said that. I feel like the last couple of years you've seen less and less gliders.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, and I'm not saying you have to stay a glider
oh,
forever,
100%
but
exactly. But it's good, especially for younger kids.
it's good to have
Where
experience.
yeah, and I'm fortunate enough I get to work with a lot of younger kids that are throwing, and I've had similar philosophies, especially just since they're still developing. They're not really lifting, so they're not super strong to where they're able to hold certain positions better. That
Yeah.
I've just had them learn to glide because it's a little well, one, it's easier for them to learn, but they're
Yeah,
getting used to the feeling of pushing forward on the ball, and sometimes that's even a struggle when you're developing.
exactly. It's something I never developed.
Yeah, no, you're too kind about that about yourself. That's an
Well, thank
understatement,
you.
but yeah, no problem. But anyways, Maggie, I guess we'll kind of close things out here. We're
Yeah.
kind of running out of time, but if you have advice to any thrower who's watching this video right now that wants to be like Maggie when they grow up, do you have any advice for them in terms of training or just even life?
Training your life. I think the most important thing, I think I have two things. Rest is a part of training. Don't forget that basically, if you don't schedule breaks for your body will take unscheduled breaks, basically. And you'd rather control that versus just getting after it every single day. Because I learned that the hard way a couple times. It took me a while to actually get it in there. But rest is a part of training. And I think the other thing is probably just, I think almost the most important thing, especially if you're semi-neurotic like me, is just like be gracious with yourself. You know, like what we do is a lot of moving parts. What we do is a lot of little things. It's a lot of big things. It's so much that you have to always kind of like celebrate what deserves to be celebrated instead of only focusing on what needs to change or only focusing on the bad part of the throw. You know, the first 5 seconds after your throw is the most important because you can either walk away from it saying, I did my entry. It's okay that my finish,
Yep.
you know, I fouled, whatever, but I did the entry. Yay, 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 yay. You know, or you can be like, I fouled out the front. That strike was terrible. It doesn't even matter that the entry was good.
Exactly. There's
You
two
have
ways to
to
look at it. It's
celebrate
the
the win.
same throw.
Exactly. You have to celebrate the wins. You have to be gracious with yourself because Lord knows we can overthink the heck out of a throw. So find the
Exactly.
positives and
Yeah.
take a nap,
Yeah.
basically.
And for those watching, make sure you follow Maggie on all her social medias. That's one thing that I've really admired about your, I guess, the brand you're making for yourself is you do a great job of always posting about this is my small goal for today. Or if you
Yeah.
had a rough practice of like today sucked, but I worked on this little thing and it got better and I'm happy about it.
Yes.
And I think it's really
1% better
cool.
every day.
Yeah, it's really cool to see that, especially to see the long list of accolades you have and being able to see someone that a lot of people look up to and knowing that, oh, she's not perfect either.
Oh no.
A lot of people just see blah, 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 whatever level they're at. I'll
Yeah.
never be at whatever level they're looking at. And they never were like me. They never struggled like this.
Oh no, we are human too, believe me. And besides, you never want to be perfect because then that means you're tapped out. You hit your ceiling. You always want to walk away from a throw thinking, I could have done something better. Because that means
Exactly.
you have room to be better.
Yeah, and even like you and everyone that you compete with are some of the best in the world. I'm pretty sure every single person has the I wish I could do XYZ better. So there's
Yeah,
always room to improve.
always. Yeah, always. You'll always be working on something, trust me.
Yeah,
Don't let that dishearten you. It's okay to have things to be working on.
exactly. And take those last seconds after a throw and find what you could be appreciative about and you can look at the same throw two different ways, and one way you're going to be miserable all day, one way you're going to be feeling accomplished and driven for the next session.
Productive.
Exactly. I guess we're kind of out of time
Yeah,
for
no
this
worries.
episode. So, Maggie, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Throwers, make sure you give Maggie a follow. She posts some great inspirational content about her training and fun life advice in that way, too, as well as some big throws. So, make sure you give Maggie a follow and say thank you for being on the Throw Zone.
Yeah.
And to our other followers who are still tuned in here, thank you to you guys for staying connected with us. And remember to like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Follow us on all the streaming services that you choose and keep following our Instagram. We're going to continue coming up with fun content and we'll catch you on the next episode.